Hello, and welcome to the second installment of Communication, the Human Connection, where we'll be focusing on reading and writing. If you want to be a writer, you must do two things above all others: read a lot and write a lot. This is from Stephen King's book On Writing, which is a very excellent read. But I love this quote. Um, Many people ask me why my writing is so good. And honestly, my writing is good because I've read a lot of things. And when you read, like even tweets, you retain styles and you know how to work with words. So that's my best advice on becoming a good writer. You won't just become one overnight, it comes through, practice and also reading. So let's look at 5 tips to enhance your reading skills. There is one technique that you can use to heighten, I guess, your research skills. And this will allow you to find really great pieces of research when you're doing essays. And that is skimming. So, skimming allows you to, I don't know, take in the most important parts of any given text without wasting a lot of time doing so. So, this is what you'll do to skim. You read the title of whatever you're looking at and gain information from the visuals, if there are any. And then you're going to read maybe the first few lines or the first paragraph of the article or text. Ignore the details. You're just trying to get basic information here. And then your eyes just kind of dart through the entire thing. Once you've read the first paragraph, you're just going to read like the first sentence of every subsequent paragraph and then read the conclusion. So skimming a text, a very long text, let's say, that you might want to use for research, is much easier than reading the entire text. So skimming is an excellent skill to have to locate research that will benefit you. Then there's scanning. So scanning is another technique you can use to quickly get information from a long text. The idea with scanning is that you already have an idea of what you want to get out of the text. Then you, let's say, put your finger in the middle of the page, whether it's on your computer screen or a real book, and you just dart your eyes back and forth, searching for keywords that you want to focus in on. So that's scanning. So you're reading, whether you're skimming, scanning, or reading. You've located something that you need to read in its entirety. One trick that I've always used throughout my schooling is to highlight and annotate. If you're in a course that is particularly research heavy, where you're going to be having to read a lot of longer articles, then I would suggest highlighting and annotating your work. You can do this through, you can do it via PDF. There's like annotation tools that you can use, or you can print out your work and do it by hand. I prefer printing work out, but I'm old, so it's all up to you, whatever works best for you. So I highlight passages in my research or when I'm reading other articles. so that I can come back to it later and then pick and choose what I'd like to include in an essay or what to focus in on when I'm studying. I also make notes in the margins so that I can kind of refresh my memory as to what exactly was important about any given statement. So highlighting and annotating is a very effective way to process large passages of literature. My grandma always suggested this. Of course, not many of us have a physical dictionary anymore. But when I'm reading, like any article, from something on Reddit to, a long piece of literature, I like to constantly refer back to my dictionary, whether it's on my phone or my computer, or just Google words that I'm not familiar with. Now, when I first started doing this, I wasn't familiar with very many words. I was, in primary school. And now I'm familiar with many more words, but still, like, even as a communications teacher with an English degree and a master's, there are words that I come across that I don't understand. So, in order to properly get the best from your reading experience, you can't just skip over the words that you're not really familiar with, and there's no shame in that. So yes, anytime I come across a word that I don't understand, I look it up, I understand what it means, and then I continue with my reading. And this is somewhat humiliating for some people, but certain individuals really benefit from reading a text out loud to themselves or having someone read it to them. I know a lot of people like to listen to like books on tape or someone reading fiction. And I think it sticks in certain people's minds a lot easier. So if you find that just reading, like scanning, skimming, reading, is not, not the best way of getting information, you might want to try reading aloud. Find a quiet space so people don't think you're doing something strange, and just read material out loud. All right, now let's move along. Now that we kind of have tips to read better, let's focus on tips that will enhance our writing skills. First of all, think before you ink. Typically, that refers to getting a tattoo. But in this case, I mean, organize your thoughts in your head before you start writing. This is what I always do. If I know that there's a major essay due, I, sit down, give myself like 20 minutes to just organize my thoughts. What exactly do I want to prove in my essay? What do I want to say to my audience? What do I want them to take away from what I'm going to write? In most cases, this means narrowing in on a thesis. So by the end of your think session, you should have one statement that you are going to then prove with your writing. So let's think of a basic statement here. Dogs are better than cats. So I've thought about it for 20 minutes. That's what I want to say. I'm now going to sit down and outline a draft of why dogs are better than cats. Okay, so I've got my thesis. I know I have brainstorm here. Now the outline comes. So I'm going to write on my page, dogs are better than cats. I'm going to jot down 2 to 3 bits of evidence for each argument I have as to why dogs are better than cats. Number 1, let's say my first main argument is that dogs are more affectionate than cats. So that would be my first main argument. And then I would have 2 to 3 proofs for that. That's where I'd go into research and find statements that show that dogs are actually more affectionate. That'd be kind of hard to prove, but we all know. So that would be my outline, and that would just be a bulleted list of main arguments. There's usually about 3 in any like standard essay, 3 main arguments with 2 to 3 bits of supporting evidence to really bring the point home. Okay, then once I have all my ideas on a page, perhaps I started with dogs are more affectionate than cats for my first argument. Then I would transition to dogs are, oh God, I'm having a hard time proving this. Dogs make you get out of the house and exercise more. That could be a second argument. But it's not as strong as dogs are more affectionate. So perhaps I'd leave that in the middle of my essay, and then I'd finish with like a big statement to drive the point home with my final main argument. And I'm just going to go out on a limb and say dogs are smarter than cats. I don't think I'd be able to prove that. I'm not even sure if it's true myself, but it's a strong argument that packs a punch. So I'd leave that to the end of my essay. So once you outline all of your arguments, you can then organize them as I have just kind of poorly done there to make sure that you're starting out pretty strong. You kind of hide your weakest argument in the middle of your essay, and then your final main argument just brings the point home. Then once you have your outline prepared with your bulleted points and subpoints, you're going to sit down and just write. Don't worry about spelling. Don't worry about editing. Just get it out of your head. Just anything. Even if it sounds like drivel when it's coming out, just get it out. That, I think, is one of the secrets to good writing. Then you'll have maybe more than you need of your essay or whatever it is that you're writing. And you're going to first yourself go through your first draft. So this big hunk of writing, you're going to read through it. You're going to then edit for yourself. You're going to make sure everything's logical, flowing, that it's concise, that you're not using like 25 words when 3 words will do. And you have to make sure that everything in that essay is pointing back to your thesis. Dogs are better than cats. If something strays from the thesis, then it doesn't belong in an essay. Then, this is probably the second most important part of the process. You need somebody else's eyes on your essay. Even if you're a flawless writer who's written a million essays, it's always beneficial to get somebody else's eyes on your paper. A lot of the time, even like amazing writers, they read and read and read, and they're reading through what they think is on the page and not what is actually on the page, because they've spent so long with a piece that they can't like see it for what it is. So yes, find your nerdy friends and get them to read your paper through and give you suggestions. And then once somebody else's eyes have been on your paper, you want to take it back and begin the revision process. You might not agree with everything that your editor has to say, but do consider their advice. Keep in mind that, you know, you're not marking your own paper, a teacher or someone else is. And if your friend says, oh, this doesn't seem to be flowing logically, well, typically your teacher is going to feel the same way. So revise, revise, revise. Once you feel like you've done all the revisions, give your paper one more read through. Really focus here on grammar and spelling. You can do this with your spell check. And then that paper is ready to submit. So that brings us to the end of the second installment of Communication, the Human Connection. Please use these tips when you're reading and writing, and I guarantee that you'll have an easier time of both of those tasks.